Peace and blessings, family, and welcome to Labors of Love podcast. We are here to inspire, uplift, and enlighten. Each episode, we will be hearing from Black midwives, doulas, and other traditional childbirth supporters who have dedicated their lives to being of service to Black mothers and families in all aspects of the motherhood journey. I am your host, Hafeeza Ture, and this evening I have the pleasure of speaking with Christina Jetter Abrams, student midwife and doula. As an experienced birth worker and coach in the greater Philadelphia area, she offers personalized prenatal, birthing, and postnatal support. She is a wife and mother of 5 adult children and 5 beautiful grandbabies. She has enjoyed over 30 years of experience working in other sectors, with the last 15 years in behavioral health and training. She is a certified first aid, CPR, AED instructor since 2010. Thank you for being on the show. Welcome.
Hi. Well, thank you for having me. It truly is. I'm grateful for the opportunity, just to be able to shed more light for our people, for women, for birthing families. Just to know that you have options regardless of what anyone tells you, and that you absolutely are capable of bringing your child into this world at no harm to you or them. you know so, but thank you for the introduction. Thank you for having me. So,
Thank you. So we're just going to jump right in here. I know we had, just a really good conversation.
yeah.
And so there's a little few things that I've found out, and I just really wanted to share with the audience kind of what your story is and what, I know you come from, a professional background, and, how did you get to the space of supporting mothers doing birth work?
So, I guess for many women, not for or for many birth workers rather, it all starts with the birth of your children. So, and not everyone, I realize that. So for me, when I became pregnant, when I was about 16 weeks when I found out I was having twins. And yeah, yeah, I was in college. This was the first go around in college. And I was working as oh goodness, what was I doing? I was working as a temp for Bell Atlantic, like in the office. My goodness, boy, I'm going back. And I, found out I was having twins, and then probably about a month or two later, they were like, you really should go on bed rest. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? What? And I also had gotten a letter in the mail from my insurance company, like, oh, midwives are available. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get it. And when I spoke to my mother about it, she said, "Don't you remember when you were little? We talked about this." And I'd completely forgotten. When you hit the teen years, a lot of times you get derailed from what it probably was when you were a child, what you really should do, or what would be really a good fit for you. Those things that you think about. I used to love babies and pregnant women. It was a thing in the family. Like, and I remember she had to remind me, do you remember we talked about this? And I was like, yeah, no, I remember. And she said, someone had said, oh, you should be a nurse. I was like, I don't want to be a nurse. Well, you should be a doctor. I definitely don't want to be a doctor. And my mother had said, well, what about a midwife? And I must have been about 7 years old, 7 or 8. And I said, what's a midwife? She said, a midwife only helps women who are having babies. And I remember saying, huh, okay. And then I, go skipping off, outside to play or something. I remember that. But I'd forgotten about it all those years. We never really, although you might talk about things and do different things, at that time, what was really pushed socially was going to college and getting a degree. That was the big thing. Especially, and for me, I can't even believe that I can say it was this long ago. So that was like late 70s, early 80s. And so during that time, those formative years, that's what was really pushed. And so that was the direction to go in. And so I don't want to blame it on socially, but definitely I had lost my own vision. So
Mhm.
when I was, when I was pregnant, and I was like, wow, okay, I'll get a midwife. And then upon finding out, oh, you're having twins, I remember, the hospital was like, oh, you can't have a midwife. I was like, why not? You're high risk. Why am I high risk? Because you're having twins. I'm like, but just because I'm having twins doesn't mean I'm high risk. I had no health issues,
Right.
none. I had no diabetes, no hypertension, no preeclampsia, no high blood, like nothing. Like it really was a great pregnancy. It really was. And and I think the only thing was, of course, as you're moving along and you get further along in months, I started having, premature labor, and so it was like the at the time I was at Lincoln Hospital, and I had really a really great team of doctors, and they really just kept saying, oh, we want to try and get you as close to 40 weeks as possible. And
Mhm.
so, there were, different interventions that I look back now, like they weren't interventions that would cause any necessary issues, but of course, any intervention that you have has the potential for those risks.
Right.
I didn't have any of those, so I was very, very, very fortunate in that aspect, in that regard. Um, and so, right before my girls were born, the doctor was like, "Oh, one's breech had, that last ultrasound. One's breech, she's coming second, and she's bigger than the first one. So my one daughter, her head was engaged. The other one was breech, and she was bigger." And I was like, "Well, can't you just turn her around or something?" And they were like, "Yeah, well, yeah." I mean, I'm like, so I guess innately I knew, because I was like, why can't you just turn her around? So because they said, well, the first one might be born vaginally, and then you may end up having a C-section if the second one doesn't turn. I was like, but why give me a C-section? Why not just turn the baby? And they were like, yeah, we don't do that. And I was like, what do you mean you don't do that? And like, we don't do that. And I said, but midwives know how to do that, right? And he was like, yeah, but we're not midwives.
Wow.
Yeah, and I mean, he didn't say it harshly or cruel, it was just, and I was like, "Okay." Like, even now, I still feel that disappointment in my
Mm.
chest, And so, as way leads on to way, I ended up, I didn't walk around, I was on constant monitor,
Mm.
only unhooked when I went to the bathroom, and I went in for my scheduled appointment. There, you might have the kids today. If so, if you're in labor, we'll let you go. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, I was actually hospitalized like probably like a month or two beforehand for like a week, because I kept going into premature labor, and like it was an
Mm.
issue. So, and they were like, listen, we're just trying to get you as close to 40 because their lungs aren't as developed yet.
Mhm.
Great. So 36 weeks, they were like, okay, we'll stop. I was on a medication called breathine. I had to learn how to give myself injections and everything.
Wow.
Like back, yeah, yeah, yeah. Back then, there was so the monitoring. Even when I went home, so I go into and this was like September. I go in for an appointment. I had them in November. So in
Mm.
September, I go in for an appointment. Doctor's like, "How are you feeling?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm fine. I feel hot. I feel like someone's sitting on my chest. Like I can't really breathe." And I was like, "Why do you ask?" Do I look funny? Because I'm hot. And he's like, you're in labor. I'm like, really? And he's like, how do you feel? I'm like, stomach's a little tight, but otherwise I'm good. And he was like, okay. So I'm going to give you a shot of this breathine to try and get you to come down out of labor. It's a muscle relaxant. And it was actually a medication used for asthma.
Mm.
And so I didn't come out of, it was still going on. And they were for like a good couple hours, and they were like, okay, you're like, you know what, you're dehydrated, so we're gonna admit you overnight. You'll
Mm.
be out tomorrow, right? Get on an IV, labor stops. Okay, you'll probably go out, you'll probably leave tomorrow. That went on every day for a week.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious. So then they finally said, okay, we're going to teach you how to give yourself injections. And then once a day, you're going to have to hook yourself up to this monitor and you're going to plug it into the phone cord. I kid you, this is 1991. You're going to plug it into your phone jack while you're plugged in. This was the monitoring. It was like distance monitoring. Kid you not. Isn't that amazing? And so, I mean, like everyone in my family was like, "Oh, they can do that now." So now everyone's like, "Oh yeah, you just get sent home like with the sleep monitor or with whatever monitor you're on. Like it's not a big deal." But back then, it was like,
Yeah.
even that. God, I sound so old. And so, because in my mind, I'm still like 25. So the gray hair is decorative tinsel. So that happened, and then once I got out, it was like okay, and so literally for all of October, for like half of September into October, like every day, I'd hook myself up to this monitor, and if I was in labor, I'd give myself a shot of this breathing, come out of labor, I'm good. And I'd have to monitor myself again after a few hours to make sure everything was okay. Talk with the doctor, like this went on for weeks. And then they said, okay, well, you'll stop taking your meds and stop taking the breathing, and then probably 2 days we'll schedule you for ultrasound the next day, and you'll probably have the babies the next day. And that's exactly what happened.
Mm.
And that's exactly what happened. So here it is, and I remember I was afraid, I was terrified because I didn't know what to expect. Now here it is, my mother said to me, like, oh, well, she had 4 kids. She said, I had you. I didn't even make it to the OR. I had you in the labor room. She was by herself. She caught me. And so I thought, man, I'm not. Now my mother was, I mean, she was like that every woman. My mom could cook, she could bake, she could sew, she could sing, she was just like that woman. So I was like, I'm not like her. I can do some of it, but I can't do all of that. Like, there's no way. And I was scared, and I didn't know what to expect. No one said to me, well, labor really is most likely like feeling like really bad cramps. Not one time did I get any type of that would have been the simplest and most easiest way to describe what you're feeling. No one, all the women I knew, no one could, oh no, it'll hurt. And I'm like, so I'm terrified. Now, also at the time, going through some challenges in my relationship. And so so that morning when I went in for a checkup, okay, hey, guess what? News to all of us, you're in labor as per usual, first thing in the morning. And I was like, oh, okay, great. All right, so we'll just wheel you up. We'll get you a room and you'll just hang out here for a while and then you'll have your babies. And I'm like, all right. Um, and I was by myself the whole time. And so that was like at 10 a.m. And so by the time 3, 4 o'clock rolled around, um, I was still at like 4 centimeters. And there was a specialist who was there, and I'll never forget her. Her name was Christine Stanley. She was like 5 feet nothing. She's like my height. And she said, so what did they tell you to expect? What did the doctors tell you to expect? And I was like, oh, they said I might have the first one naturally and the second one, by C-section. And she said, I hate the men doctors in this hospital. And I was like, you work here. She's like, I still can't stand them because it doesn't make sense for you to hurt from your belly and your bottom. And I said, well, can I just like walk around? I feel like walking around. And she was like, you've been here for quite a while and you haven't advanced. And I was like, okay, so you're in a gray area. She went to the board of directors. Kid you not.
Wow.
Came back like you're in a gray area. It's up to you. I'm 21 years old. I know nothing.
Mhm.
I am just, you know, really? You're gonna leave that up to a 21-year-old to decide? And I'm calling family. I'm calling. My sister was working. I couldn't get. We didn't have cell phones. It's
Right.
1991. You did that. What you had a pager at
What?
best, looking like a drug dealer. Okay, you had a pager at best. Okay,
Yes.
and so I had to make that decision on my own. And I thought, you know what, I felt like I had to make the decision for a C-section. And while we had a very positive, great outcome, um, it wasn't I was afraid and I didn't have any confidence in myself or in my body.
Mm.
And I wasn't educated. That's the biggest thing. I was not educated on the experience of childbirth, the process of childbirth. Even though I was reading books, yes, you can read books, but to actually, there's more information than just, the big book at the time was What to Expect When You're Expecting.
Mm.
Okay. So that didn't talk about, the hormone, the chemical that's excreted by the baby's lungs, which triggers labor.
Mm.
It didn't talk about, the pain, or the, not so much even pain, but the feeling that you're having is your uterus as a muscle moving the baby through your pelvis. That right there, I would have been like, oh, then I can deal with whatever's coming because I know what it is.
Yes.
Right? The moment, if for those of us who have cramps during our cycle, and I had endometriosis for a good while, and who have clots, how can you deal with it? Because you know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know what's happening, it's like, oh my God, somebody's killing me. So the information piece of it, and it would have really worked for alleviating my fear, and my ignorance, really. Like, there weren't a whole lot of books out then, and I was on bed rest, so there was no going to the library, because shucks, I'd be out for an hour trying to go to the corner store to get some, you know what I mean, to use my WIC check, and next thing you know, I'm like, oh, I think I might be in labor. I'm feeling hot all of a sudden. You know what I mean? Like, all of that. Like, this is not a good time to do that.
Yeah.
So resources were limited, information was limited, and women, it wasn't the kind of thing that women talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Like this, like in the last 5-10 years, because I became a doula 9 years ago, before my grandson was born. Let me tell you, the explosion of women conversing and giving each other information,
Yes.
and the videos and the words that are being used, none of this was present back then. It just, women didn't talk about it. And when I tried to get people to tell me about it, they're like, well, we don't talk about those kind of things. What? But you didn't. It was hush hush, and you talked about the bare minimum, understanding of function of the body. That was it, because otherwise, to talk about that was a secretive thing. It's a secret. And not as a secret as in not to be kept from someone, but it's between you and your man, between you and your husband, your spouse, all of that. So it's different. So when my daughter came to me, and right before my daughter got pregnant with our oldest grandchild, I had met a woman at work. So at the time, I was working for a staffing company, behavioral health, and I was a behavioral health trainer. I teach CPR and all these things about behaviors, which is really my thing, teaching that and the birth work. And so I was talking with her and she was like, oh yeah, she was a CPM here in Philly, who was transitioning into other work, into behavioral health work. And she was like, oh, well, I train doulas. And I was like, oh, well, why don't you be would you be my daughter's doula? And she goes, why don't you do it? I said, because if I knew anything about birth, I probably wouldn't have had a C-section. And she said, but I'll teach you. And I said, no, I'm scared. And she was like, listen, she looked at me. She's amazing. Her name is Beth Goldberg. She said, look, I love you, but you're going to have to pay me for my time, and it's $800 for me to be your doula. Or I could teach you in a weekend for $300. And I said, I'll take the $300, Alex. I said, and so when I got there to her house Friday night, my jaw hit the floor with everything I was learning. And my jaw 9 years later is still on the floor about everything that is so amazing about our bodies and about birth and about babies and women and
And
just,
how empowering is that though? To
hmm?
have the how empowering is that
Oh my goodness.
information?
I'm like, oh, I can get, oh, all right. I can fully wear an S on my chest now. Like, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, no, that is amazing, and I'm so glad that you shared that information. And there's something else that I know our time is so limited, and we could do this for hours.
I'm so
But
sorry.
no, no, no. But just the whole psychology and the behavioral health aspect of it. You mentioned something
Yes.
in previous conversation, especially like in reference to holding space and to being, a childbirth worker, a doula
Hmm.
in those
Hmm.
spaces. Um, like there's flags or indicators or things
Yes.
that you notice and look out for so that you can best support mothers because
Yes.
it's just eye-opening to understand people have their different life experiences before they even begin
Hmm.
this mothering process, and then you
Hmm.
become pregnant and how vulnerable that is. And
Hmm.
so what are some of the things that you look out for, or you would recommend doulas look out for, and what support and resources would be available for that?
So a lot of times, so as the years are moving forward, I'm seeing how more and more women, and not just women, but fathers, families have experienced a lot of trauma. Like most of the time in birth work, when you hear about trauma, they talk about birth trauma, right? Which is a thing.
Yeah.
But what about the trauma when before someone has a baby, right? Not just, but including um, physical assault and battery? What about rape? What about physical, mental, emotional abuse? All of that is a thing, and all of that impacts your trust in yourself and your body, your trust in those who are attending to you, your ability to even process what's happening to your body, the lack of control that you end up feeling, right? And going through. How do you deal with that? And even as a birth worker, are you able to identify when a woman is going through that? Looking at signs such as so we're taught to look at certain physical things in most basic trainings, right? Most basic doula trainings, but we're not looking at if someone is really working through not there's the stiff body, right? And we know that adrenaline fights oxytocin, right? Which halts labor. Okay. So is that coming from just from her dealing with the feeling that she's feeling? But then there's the stiff neck, not just the stiff shoulders and stiff back, the lack of verbalization, right? And even a faraway look in her eyes where you can look and see and start to question, is she here in the present or is she somewhere else? And is she somewhere else because she's dealing with the transition she's going through, or is she somewhere else because she's remembering that time that she was held down and she wasn't in control of her body? How are you able to hold space? Is holding space meaning, hey, where are you? Talk to me. What's your name? Where are we? What's happening? What's going on? Are you so, and there's the questions that are you okay with, questions that give yes or no. But what you want to start asking is questions where they're required to give something other than a yes or no answer. What's today's date? What's happening right now? My baby's coming, right? As opposed to, oh, I'm not here right now. Okay, are you here right now? Are you not here right now? What are you thinking about? Where are you? Right? And so there are certain programs like certain hypnosis type, birthing programs that help women and give you tools to be able to check out so that you're not you're able to pass through or allow your body to relax to pass through this transition that you're feeling. But if that's not what's happening, that's not what's going on, right? Start looking at an individual's personality. Some of us are close to the vest, right? Some folks, some mamas or some birthing folks are not as talkative, running their mouth like I am, right? So those who are very internal or close to the vest, is that helping or halting labor? right? So I had a friend of ours who, I noticed even just from her personality, I'm like, wow, she's pretty close to the vest, right? Typically. And her husband were really pushing, like, oh no, we're going, no, I'm doing it natural. No, no, I'm determined. I'm doing it natural. And I'm like, okay, but there still takes a piece of you that needs to relax. And literally, you have to let this happen to you. You have to allow it to happen to you. And for someone who has trauma in my past, let what happened. Nobody's doing nothing to me,
Right.
but I have to allow it to happen to me. I have to relax into the pain, which is the biggest oxymoron I've ever heard in my life, right? So she was in labor for probably about 24 hours at this point,
Wow.
and she was still at 3 centimeters. And she was like,
Um,
I saw her get defeated. And so it was like, you know what? I was like, yeah, let's go to the bathroom. She was like, yeah, let's go. She would go to the bathroom. I closed the door. It's just me and her. And I said, listen. And I know in the birth world, most of us are like, oh, natural, baby. And I'm like, okay. But I think she needs to disconnect. And I didn't have the hypnosis skills. I'm like, yeah, and I'm not a hypnotist. So I'm not going to delve into something in the middle of labor that I have no knowledge of. But I know behavior. I know what I'm looking at. And even though she was doing all the physical relaxation, but I could see her neck was tight.
mm,
I could see in her face and in her eyes, I'm like, oh man, she's like not taking this well. So we go in the bathroom and I said, listen, there's no awards being given out here for going all natural. You have been born in it. You are in an incredible place. You are in Philly. If you spit, it's landed on a hospital or a doctor's office or some type of clinic. I'm not kidding. Philly is like jam packed with, it's a very heavy medical area. And I said, you are in one of the best hospitals in the city. Listen to me and listen to me good. No one's giving you an Oscar or a prize. Not many people are really going to ask you after all of this, did you have an epidural or not? And some might say, I bet you had epidural. So what? I said, there are no prizes. You are in a place where you can get pain management if you need it. And I know the hospital staff's been really good at not pushing it, which I was stunned about.
yeah.
Side note. Um, and she said, okay. And she finishes. I help her get up, help her do all of that stuff. And right before she comes to the sink, another, she had to pass through another one. And as she's washing her hands, I'll never forget. She said, yeah, this is bananas. I'm not doing this anymore. And I said, all right. I said, you want me call? She said, yes. We get out. I said, I went to the nurse. Yeah, she's going to need some pain management. They were like, all right. Anesthesiologist comes in. I said, you want to try a different position? Let's try on your stomach. Because that way, then you can lay your head down and take a nap, right? I said, okay. She gets on her stomach. They give her the epidural. Within probably about 5 or 10 minutes, she's like able to relax and goes to sleep.
Mm.
Probably about 50, 55 minutes later, like inside of an hour, she wakes up. I got to push. Just like that. She was at 10 centimeters. She
Wow.
needed to disconnect.
Yeah.
There's no shame in that.
No, not at all. And
Just
that's
because we're not aware of all the herbs that were used during birth
right. There's that as well.
before the hospitals,
Hmm.
just because we
Hmm.
don't know doesn't mean that it wasn't used. We just aren't aware.
Right. Right.
And so once she did, like, boom, baby's born a few minutes later. I'm like, oh, this is amazing.
Right.
So holding space, that is one way of holding space, right? Another way of holding space is, oh wait, are we time?
We're wrapping up. So
Okay,
yes,
we're wrapping up.
and you
Okay.
shared an amazing story. So yes, how we hold space, and then you can just
So
share with
ho-
everyone how to get in touch with you.
so how we hold space is creating an environment of non-judgment, right? And offering different options without judgment, but with encouragement,
Mhm.
right? So not highlighting the bad over the good, making sure that we're doing that, not highlighting the good over the bad. These are your options. right? And so this is the and holding that space so that if someone is in a traumatic space,
Right.
right, that they're able to pass through that experience. What happens is that your mind, your psyche is constantly trying to get back to that traumatic moment to pass through it positively and not negatively, which is what happened before, which is why you keep replaying it.
Mhm.
This is what people are going through all the time. Your
Yeah.
your psyche is constantly saying, "I need to get back to that place so I can get over this hurdle." And you're providing that space for them to do that,
Wow.
right? And so afterwards, she was saying, "Wow, I felt like you heard me, even though she hadn't said a word."
Right.
And I was like, "That's what I'm here for." Okay, so how can you get in touch with me? I'm on Facebook, on Instagram. My website is christinabirth .com and that's pretty much it. So
And I will
I
also
love this
have,
stuff. I live,
I
breathe,
know,
and eat this stuff. Hmm?
all day. And I will also have your information in the description of the video. So you'll be able to reach out on Facebook and Instagram to get in touch
Yes.
with Christina Abrams. This is It's been several amazing conversations with you. We must do this again because there is so
Yes.
much to talk about, and just continuing this dialogue. I think there's something very significant about, just various ways of birthing, understanding your options, knowing there's no right or wrong way. It's just really about having a positive birth outcome. And even
Yes.
in your eyes, right? Because everyone's idea or understanding of what that is unique to themselves. So I
Hmm.
like to say, no two birth stories are the same, but the experience of childbirth connects us all. So, whoever you are, we all got here. So, we just to continue this dialogue, I'm grateful for what it is that you do. Thank you for accepting the invitation and coming up
Oh,
here to
thank
have a
you. I'm grateful for what you do. It's such a amazing and beautiful work. So thank you.
I truly appreciate it. And please, everyone, tune in, share, like, subscribe. And if this, spoke to you, if you know anyone who could benefit from, this conversation, please share it with them. Reach out, and the information will be in the description. We'll be airing at Mondays at 9:30 on Calfani Radio. And thank you all for joining us this evening. Peace and blessings.